Am going to call the Justice Committee meeting to order.
Ready.
Is that fast enough?
You know what? I loved it.
I know.
It's very comprehensive.
Roll call. You may go. Yeah. I was given instructions to go slow tonight, so I'm going to go slow. No. Approval of minutes, January 3rd, 2023. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? I have a motion by member Abraham, a second by member Roseman Mendoza. Any questions or comments about the minutes? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is appearance by members of the public. Do we have anybody? We had somebody, didn't we?
We did have one request to speak by Zach Gittrich. I do not see him in the gallery this evening, so we can move on.
All right. First item on the agenda is item 4A, Will Scanlon Circuit Court. We have no items for action. We do have an item for information. I see Mr. Scanlon is sitting up there. Would you like to address item 4A2A?
Be happy to. Good afternoon. It's good to see everyone again after the tour from last week. I appreciate everyone being able to attend the tour of the Law and Justice Center. And again, if anyone has questions on the Justice Committee or you want to see a particular aspect of the Circuit Court, we're happy to arrange another site visit over across the street. I spoke briefly at the January meeting that the Administrative Office of the Illinois Courts was going to offer a technology grant program to the courts. I have submitted that grant. We have not had any word on whether we're going to receive funding for that grant, but we have strong confidence based on responses we've had for other counties in the circuit that we'll be receiving notice either this week or early next week. I attached the grant to the materials for the committee. It is in the amount of $131,917.71. A lot of it is behind the scenes equipment, servers, switches, cabling, upgrades to firmware and software in the audio systems. Very little of it is going to be, other than some of the TV displays and the scanners, is going to be very front and center to the public. But I think it's about page 8 of the grant details all the equipment that we asked for. But I just bring it to the committee's attention. We will be having vendors into the building if the grant's approved in April, May, and June to perform this work and deliver the hardware. So, any questions?
Does any member have any questions? Member Schaefer?
Yeah, what you just mentioned about them coming in April and May and June, because this is February already, and do they have all this equipment since it says it has to be expended by June?
Yes.
End of June?
Yes. Other than the switches, these are now readily available items.
Thank you.
Any member have any other questions? All right, seeing none. Mr. Scanlon, is there anything else you'd like to address?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 4B, Matt Lane, McLean County Sheriff. We have 2 items for action. First item is item 4B1A, request approval of an intergovernmental agreement between the State of Illinois, Illinois Emergency and Management Agency in the County of McLean. And can I have a motion to approve? Motion by member Bell, second by member Abraham. Mr. Lane, would you like to address that?
This is a yearly grant that we participated in for several years. Helps cover the cost of everything from payroll and benefits to utilities and and vehicle maintenance. So it's very beneficial.
Does any member have any questions? Member Tompkins?
But I'll go ahead. This is not germane to this topic, is that okay? Or do you want to wait for a
Do you want to
further-
wait till we get to
Yes, sir.
other, 2C other? Okay. All right. Does any member have any questions? Member Abraham?
So obviously this grant is the Emergency Management Preparedness Grant. How much of this money is going towards preparedness? Because obviously there's like payroll and benefits and everything. That's
I
all
don't,
good,
I don't have
but-
the breakdown with me, sir. I could provide that to you, but I don't have that with me today. I don't have the breakdown on what it's all spent on.
Does any member have any other questions? All right, seeing none, we are voting on item 4B1A. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is item 4B1B, request approval of an intergovernmental agreement between the County of McLean, City of Lexington, and the McLean County Sheriff. And can I have a motion to approve? I have a motion by Member Schaefer, a second by Member Abraham. Mr. Lane, would you like to address that?
Yes, we got a request from the mayor of Lexington. They found themselves without a police chief. They had one other full-time officer who was not fully trained yet. And so they didn't have any full-time officers because the young man that they had started training wasn't prepared to go out on his own yet. So they asked if we could cover up to 40 hours a week at different day and second shift hours. And that's what this agreement is about, is to give them some coverage. They have since actually moved very quickly to hire part-timers to help fill some gaps. I'm waiting on that schedule so I know when they need us and when I should assign my people to their town for those given periods of time.
Does any member have any questions? Member Bell?
Yes, 40 hours a week, is it just one officer, or is it 3 or 4 different officers?
It would be
covering
different.
Different shifts?
It would be different on the different shifts. What we would do, ma'am, is we would post, say we have a day shift on Monday, a second shift on Tuesday, Wednesday, and a day shift on Thursday and Friday. What we would do, and we do it on 7 days, over the 7 days a week. What we do is we would find, each deputy can sign up for voluntary overtime like this. And if no one volunteers for it, then we force usually the low man that's there to go work it. I don't think that will be a problem in this case because of the hours. I think third shift hours would be much more difficult to cover for us. And that's why we agreed to that. So it would be different depending on who wanted the extra money, and they are reimbursing us for that.
Okay, so we're not going to go over that 40-hour threshold?
We won't,
Okay,
no,
thank
and they will reimburse us for every hour.
Does any member have any other questions? I'd ask Sheriff Lane a question about that. You probably remember the question. Was that going to hinder the ability of other towns who might need the sheriff, like Arrowsmith or Bellflower? And go ahead, you gave me an answer, but go ahead and answer it again.
It will not. This is in addition to our regular staff that's out on the road. This is someone that's specially assigned to that town for those hours. We still have a minimum staff level we keep for the rest of the county. That would be whether we were doing this or not. It's the same minimum staff level. So it should not affect any of the other services we provide to other towns.
Does any member have any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Member Abraham.
So how's that work? Are you taking an officer like off their off time, or a deputy, I guess, off their off time and saying, go to Lexington?
Yes, it's mostly taken up on a volunteer basis. We post the dates that we need people and what times those are, and then those folks, they can sign up on their day off to work a day shift or a second shift. They can sign up to work, if I'm working a day shift, I can then roll into a second shift working at Lexington and work a double shift that way.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we are voting on item 4B, 1B. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is item 4B2, items for information. I'll just let you, Mr. Lane, discuss those in the order you wish to discuss them.
Heartland Community College, that is for our GED program. We needed someone, we had been without for a few months, someone to teach our GED program in our detention facility, and this is to remedy that. And I don't believe it costs anything. It's just something, an agreement we have with Heartland to provide those services.
Any questions? In your statistical report?
Yeah, nothing to point out necessarily. Our population is going up slightly. Today, I believe it was 222 at the beginning of the day, which is a little higher than what we have been showing, what we have been housing. But nothing other than that.
Okay, any questions? All right, we're on other here. Member Tompkins, would you like to ask a question?
It's not a question. I just wanted to thank you for the very excellent tour you provided for this committee. I know it
Thanks, sir.
wasn't easy, given the environment that we toured in, but you went above and beyond, in my opinion. I also want to thank Mr. Scanlon, but I didn't have an other under his tour as well. But thank you very much for that.
Thank
tour.
you,
It's
and
very
thank you all
informative.
for coming. It's good to see you all there to understand what facility we're talking about and how it all works. I appreciate you coming.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Yeah, I want to add to that before we do that on other for everybody else. We thank Kathy Yoder, we thank Molly Evans, we thank Erica Reynolds, we thank Don Everhart, we thank Ron Lewis, everybody who gave us a tour. If I forgot somebody. Mike Donovan, yes. Sorry, Mike, you're sitting behind the chair there. But I'm thankful to everybody who took time out of their schedule to help enlighten us as to what you do on a daily basis. It was very helpful to see those things. So if somebody else wants to thank them, you can, but let's get that out of the way at some point. So thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 4C, Kathy Yoder, McLean County Coroner. We have no items for action. We do have an item for information or monthly report. Kathy or Ms. Yoder, would you like to discuss that?
There's nothing to really add. I do want to say suicides have been up this week, so it's very sad. So if you see anyone struggling, please reach out to them.
Does any member have any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda is item 4D, Ron Lewis, Public Defender. We have one item for action, item 4D1A, request approval of service agreement between SIU Healthcare and McLean County. And can I have a motion to approve? I have a motion by Member Tompkins, a second by Member Roseman Mendoza. Mr. Lewis, would you like to discuss that?
As indicated in the executive summary that we've provided, it's about time to get another psychologist or psychiatrist involved for common mental health, fitness evaluations, sanity, things like that that are done routinely in the court. Dr. Killian has taken care of us for a good long time, and as he would like to reduce his work from 60 hours a week to 40 hours a week. He's, as he does most of these evaluations in Central Illinois, he given us that indication and allowed us to look for another individual to start a relationship with, and also kind of actually recommended by Dr. Killian as well as someone who could help him lighten his caseload. So this person is through SIU Healthcare, and they have a very paper-intensive system there, and that's why we have the contract. Taylor, thank you for going over our contract for us, and we will just move it forward and keep doing our job and just getting different personnel to do those jobs.
Does any member have any questions of Mr. Lewis? All right, seeing none, we are voting on item 4D1A. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, next item on the agenda is item 4D2, item for information, caseload report. Mr. Lewis, is there anything you want to say about that?
Just briefly, at the end, these are the end-of-the-year numbers for last year, as you can see here. While it does show a drop, I think this is an example of what we've been saying all the last year, that the ALIC, Administrative Office of the Illinois Court, has changed the way they number court files. I don't think there's any less defendants or any less charges that are out there. They're just numbered and combined differently. I know myself and Mr. Scanlon and Ms. Reynolds have all mentioned that over the year, and I think we're seeing the result of that in this number where it shows a decline. We're still working on just as hard and with just as many people and as many charges. But that's where that difference will come in.
And that number change, correct me if I'm wrong, was that by the Illinois Supreme Court telling us how to do the numbers?
Yes.
Okay. And basically, we still have the same amount of people, the numbers just look differently.
Yes.
Okay. Does any member have any questions? Member Schaefer?
Yeah, I know in the past, we've talked about the vacancies that you have,
Yes.
and it shows that you still have 2 vacancies, and I thought we had, at one point, there were a couple people that we were waiting on their exam. And so I guess what's the status of that? And
In October, we got the results of the bar exam. Our 2 people who we had that were under 7-Eleven license, they both passed the bar and are with us full-time now. They were sworn in November, and they are with us. I had one other attorney start with us this week. I'm still down a couple positions, but making progress.
so those vacant positions that you have, would those be able to be served by contract attorneys and have more contract attorneys than we, always had like about 6,
Yes.
So I don't know if that would be helpful for you.
It's something that I'm looking into, and one of the positions is a juvenile abuse and neglect position, and that's it's not as functional for a contract as the criminal side is, but I am looking into that, and maybe even consulting with some other counties on what language they use to measure how many cases in a juvenile abuse and neglect, because those cases are they run a different track than a criminal one would. So.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item 4E, Mike Donovan. Hey, I didn't forget you, Mike. I just couldn't see you past that chair, but thank you. Item 4E1A, request approval of the Swink Motion Pictures, Inc. Public Performance Licensing Agreement for Correctional Institutions. And can I have a motion to approve? Motion by Member Abraham, second by Member Roseman Mendoza. Mr. Donovan, would you like to discuss that?
This time of year, all the renewal contracts, this is a renewal contract for copyrighted movies at the JDC. And it went up last year, it went up a few dollars again this year. It seems to be creeping up, but nothing new, nothing else with it.
Does any member have any questions? Seeing none, we will be voting on item 4E1A. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, next item on the agenda is item 4E2. It's an informational item. It's the statistics. Mr. Donovan, would you like to discuss that?
I would like to agree with Ron Lewis that, if their numbers may look like they're down, but we're seeing as many people as we ever have, and even more. Probation is the #1 alternative for the court if you talk to the chief judge, and by statute it says that should be your first option always, really, no matter who the client is. And so the court believes that, and so we're getting more and more clients, and our numbers have crept up each year, and they'll continue to do so, I imagine. So, and JDC numbers have been constant. We average 7 to 8 out-of-county kids, which is good because it's a revenue maker, and probably 5 to 7 in-county kids most of the time. It goes up and down a little bit.
Does any member have any questions? Member Schaefer?
It's not a question, and it might be under other, but because it's not, it's kind of sort of relates to the report. I attended drug court graduation. There were 5, so that kind of lowers the number so that they can get more individuals into drug court. And I believe that there's going to be another one shortly, or in the next few months maybe, to get more individuals into drug court. And so that was good. So
Yeah, I was sick and missed that. We had 5 or 6 people graduate, and we do try to invite. I make sure that the coordinator sends out an invitation, so I would highly recommend, if you haven't seen one, to try to get to one, whether it be a drug court, recovery court, or a veterans court graduation, because they are a very interesting and heartwarming type of experience, really. It shows it's a whole different side of the system than we're used to, and so it's pretty cool. But we do have, I think, 20 in the pipeline for drug court right now that are waiting on some part of the assessment process. So we will have no problem probably getting up to capacity soon. And then we're looking at further going into the next year about possibly increasing capacity. Just doing some research with Bill Blundell from AOIC, the problem solving court coordinator. I met with him last week talking about caseload numbers overall and what other jurisdictions are doing with their caseloads, and seeing if we have any room to increase caseload and then do some different types of things with the clients. So.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing anything else you'd like to add? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 4F, Don Everhart, McLean County Circuit Clerk. First item for action is item 4F1A, request approval of a debt collection agreement with Paycor Innovative Financial Recovery. And can I have a motion to approve? I have a motion by Member Bell, second by Member Abraham. Mr. Everhart, would you like to discuss that?
It is an agreement to collect on debt that's, well, hopefully, collect on some of this debt. It dates back 20-some years. So right now, I've been invoicing, just sent an invoice out in January. It was over almost $1 million in invoicing, dollar amounts. So I'd like to see if we can get some collections on these past due ones.
Does any member have any questions? Member Tompkins.
Mr. Everhart, on the collections, how much are we going to get back, and how much is the collection agency going to take for every dollar?
They don't take anything from the principal. They add interest by statute. And they take that interest, or that collection fee, I should say. And the principal they gather will come back to us. No cost to this office or the county.
Does any other member have any questions? All right, seeing none, we're voting on item 4F1A. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is item 4F2, A, monthly statistical reports and quarterly statistical reports. You can discuss those, Mr. Everhart, in any order you would like.
Well, I have nothing to add. It's nothing unusual, but I'm glad to answer any questions with those.
Does any member have any questions? All right, anything else you'd like to add?
I would like to, as Mr. Scanlon and Sheriff Lane, I was very appreciative of your tour and coming and visiting my office, and I was grateful. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for having us. Thank you, Don. All right, next item on the agenda is item 4G, Erica Reynolds, McLean County State's Attorney. We have no item for action. We do have an item for information, item 4G2, the caseload and forfeiture fund reports. Ms. Reynolds, would you like to say anything about those?
I don't have anything to add.
Does any member have any questions? Member Schaefer?
I'm just full of questions today.
I'm not
When
going to
I
make
look-
Julie happy, I'm just going to let you know. Julie wants this meeting moved along.
On your caseload report, you have for projected in 2023, many more felonies than we had, you had for 2022. So when we were doing our tour, and it was good to see Aaron is back. And so if you talked about how much time some of those major cases especially take, if they're like, if they're a homicide that you would, and so what kind of impact is that going to have on staffing? And I know that we're probably down several ASAs, so can you speculate on anything there?
I mean, yeah, so if it's, your standard felony, those don't necessarily take that much more time than a standard misdemeanor. They are more involved in that they require more discovery. Usually there's a more serious negotiation that goes on with the defense attorneys, and so it's a longer process. There's certain rights that the defendant will exercise through that process, and it does tend to drag on a little bit longer. If those are more complicated cases, like financial crimes, child sex cases, murder cases, those can be a little bit more involved, and sometimes they take more than one prosecutor. Usually when we have an increase, we don't see that increase in the year that those are charged. We typically see them the year after they're charged, because it'll take a little bit for those cases to actually go to trial, because the discovery is so involved, and it takes a long time for the defense counsel to get through that discovery and do a follow-up investigation. On the point about being down, ASAs, we're down 3 currently in our office, and that has been difficult. Just to kind of give you some insight about that, right now the market is evolving on what feels like a daily basis. Since you guys engage in the salary study and raise the salary for the ASAs within the office to make those more at market value and competitive with some of our sister counties. That has helped out a little bit, but it's become even more problematic than it was a year ago. To give examples, we, within the last year, went to a law school job fair, and encountering the people at that law school, these are law students that haven't even taken the bar yet, so they're not licensed attorneys, and their number one question was, how many days of the month can I work from home? And that is a common question that we get, and obviously you can't prosecute in your sweatpants from the living room. They also balked at the suggestion that they would be paid anything less than $85,000 as a starting attorney, which is something that essentially was unheard of prior to this point in time. Some recent developments across the state, Shelby County lost both their sitting state's attorney and assistant state's attorney on the same day. They took jobs in a different public sector position, and as a result, out-of-county ASAs are covering the workload within Shelby County because they have not gotten those people replaced because there is just an ASA shortage across the state. In recent negotiations that I engaged in with an attorney who is a attorney that's been licensed for a little over 3 years informed me that he wouldn't even sit down with me for an interview unless I promised essentially more than $76,000 for him, which is not within the budget at this point for that particular individual. So that was problematic. And then I got an email today from an out-of-county state's attorney, an elected official, that had sent out an email asking if anybody was aware of any attorneys that were looking for an assistant state's attorney position because he has an opening. His assistant state's attorney left that job for a juvenile abuse neglect position that pays $100,000 a year. And so as a result, we're having a really hard time right now competing with the private sector. Assistant state's attorneys are aware that they can leave and make $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more in the private sector or in different public sector places. And so it's been difficult. I've engaged with some law students in order to discuss them possibly getting hired. And the law students right now are looking for job offers, even though they won't be able to work under their 7-Eleven license until August. Won't even be possibly licensed till November. And they are looking for job offers right now. So, and we're almost a year out from that, from them even being able to be utilized as an assistant state's attorney, and they want the job offer now. And that is proven to be difficult, obviously, because if I make that job offer, then that position is essentially filled, and we're working down 1 or 2 people until those individuals show up. And so it's been really problematic, and it's difficult to sell the idea of being a prosecutor with just the current climate. Law enforcement, we're kind of an arm of law enforcement and an extension of them, and we are viewed that way, and people are just not encouraged to get into that sector right now.
Thank you, and I kind of think it applies to Mr. Lewis also when you're talking about these same things.
Absolutely. And in the past, one of the things that was really law students were really interested in was getting into the public sector because their student loans could be forgiven after they work for the public sector for 10 years and pay on those for 10 years. But in speaking to a lot of them, they view that debt as essentially a cable bill that they're just going to pay for the rest of their lives, and they're not really worried about it. And that used to be one of the polls, and that poll just doesn't exist right now. So I think it's because people aren't interested in getting into law enforcement, and they're not necessarily interested even in going to law school and taking on that debt.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none. There is other on there. Anything else you'd like to add? Was that enough?
Just that if I become aware of anybody that is available in the near future, you guys will obviously be the first to know.
All right, next item on the agenda is item 4H1. Molly Evans, Children's Advocacy Center Director. We have 4 items for action. Item 4H1A, request approval of a contract for services between DeWitt County Community Mental Health Board and McLean County Children's Advocacy Center. And can I have a motion to approve? Motion by Member Bell, second by Member Abraham. Ms. Evans, would you like to discuss that?
Sure. This is a continuation grant with the DeWitt County Mental Health Board. Essentially, this grant allows us to have a DeWitt County satellite office, so it pays for our rent, our utilities, some professional development, and then some supplies. Yeah, they've been great to us, and like I said, without them, I'm not sure we'd be able to have our satellite office there.
Does any member have any questions? Will you refresh my recollection? I know when we had the tour the other day, you said something about how much your center was funded by grants? Do you remember that percentage?
It's around 75-76%.
Okay, all right, so these are part of that. I mean, that's what we're doing. All
Yeah,
right.
this is typically it's a smaller grant. It's around, we always ask for 10 and they give us just a little bit below that, but it pays the bills.
All right, any questions? All right, we're voting on item 4H. Oh, I didn't see you, sorry. Member Abraham.
So when we toured your office, it's pretty nice, pretty lush. I'm liking it a lot. How's the satellite office compare?
It's a rental, so we rent it. We try to make it, it looks very similar in the sense of if we just recently, within the last 2 to 3 years, received a grant, so we were able to furnish it very similar to what we have. We've been in there, we've painted the walls. So I would say it's just in DeWitt County is much, much smaller. The room literally consists of a waiting room, interview room, and an observation room, and that is it. So, but it really serves, we pay $500 a month for that space, and it works out well. It's, right in uptown, downtown Clinton, so.
Any other questions? Did you raise your hand, Member Bell? I think so. All right. All right, seeing none, we'll be voting on item 4H1A. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is item 4H1B, request approval of cooperative agreement between 2023 award recipient and National Children's Alliance. And can I have a motion to approve? Motion by Member Schaefer, second by Member Abraham. Ms. Evans, would you like to discuss that?
Sure. The National Children's Alliance put out grants yearly for all CACs throughout the country. We wrote for 2 different grants this year. We were awarded 1. This grant specifically is focusing on training for teams on the topics of child pornography and human trafficking. So we received that grant. This grant is going to allow us to bring in a group to train our multidisciplinary teams, provide a 2-day training to them on those topics, as well as send about 11 or 12 of our multidisciplinary team members to Dallas to the Crimes Against Children Conference. It's a national conference, and that happens in August every year. It's a great conference with a ton of different sessions that really applies to all of our different team members' disciplines. So this year we're going to be being able to send several different team members, including CAC staff, law enforcement, State's Attorney Office, to this training.
Does any member have any questions? All right, seeing none, we are voting on item 4H1B. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is item 4H1C, request approval of Youth Engaged in Philanthropy grant agreement between Illinois Prairie Community Foundation and McLean County Children's Advocacy Center. And can I have a motion to approve? I have a motion by Member Roseman Mendoza and a second by Member Tompkins. Ms. Evans, would you like to discuss that?
Illinois Prairie also releases several different grants throughout the year, and we try to write for whatever we can with them. This is a YEP grant, and what this is for is it will fund our second Child Safety Matters A Day at the Zoo. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and every year we try to think outside of the box on ways to just engage the community in awareness. And so this will allow for 200 community members to get in free to the zoo that day. Throughout the zoo, we partner with multiple different child or youth serving organizations that set up booths at the zoo, and each organization is asked to provide some sort of educational material about a different form of child abuse. So the thought is that we're going to, one, be able to allow people that may not be able to afford to get into the zoo a free opportunity to come to the zoo. And while they're there, the parents can then hit every one of the booths and gather information on ways to keep their kids safe. So we have local police departments that will be there. The agencies, like I said, we work with with a group that comes in and does child identification kits. So they set up in one of the conference rooms, and those kits are, they're able to take photo, do a voice recording, do a DNA swab. So essentially, if a child should ever be abducted, a parent's going to be able to have that kit to provide them to law enforcement. So Last year we found some funding for this, and this year we thought this was also a great way to partner with Illinois Prairie through that youth program to try to get them involved too. So we're excited for it.
Does any member have any questions? All right, seeing none, we are voting on item 4H1C. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, next item on the agenda is item 4H1D, request approval of a contract agreement between McLean County Children's Advocacy Center and Fox Valley Technical College. And can I have a motion to approve? I have a motion by Member Tompkins, second by Member Bell. Ms. Evans, would you like to discuss that?
Yes, so this contract runs hand in hand with the National Children's Alliance grant. So this is the group that we will be bringing in to provide that 2-day training to our multidisciplinary team.
Any member have any questions? All right, seeing none, we're voting on item 4H1D. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is item 4H2, item for information, monthly statistics. Ms. Evans, anything you want to say about that?
I mean, our numbers were lower this year too, and we can't really explain the reason for that. In general, when you look at the number of child abuse and neglect reports that were made to the statewide hotline, those numbers were lower. So, you know, we had a couple of fairly slow months, which is not a bad thing when you're talking about child abuse and neglect. But then in January this year, we conducted close to 40 interviews, which is a lot. So there's really no rhyme or reason to it, but those are our numbers for 2022.
Any questions? Member Bell?
You know what question I want to ask. What is the ratio of minorities that you are seeing in our McLean County community?
Ms. Bell, I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I will, I can get that to you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And I believe I got that to you back in October, but I can get you those numbers from that difference for the whole year. We can look at 2022 altogether.
Any other questions? All right, anything else you'd like to add?
I don't have anything else to add, but happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. And I, along with everyone else, really appreciated you guys coming through the center. We love to show off our space and talk about what we do. So it was just great to have such a good turnout, and the questions that you had and just the interest was great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is item 4I, Cassie Taylor, County Administrator. We have no items for action. We do have item 4.2, information other. Anything you want to say?
I do have a quick
All right.
other. Just a forecast to you, we will be holding a stand-up next Thursday before the county board meeting to address change order that is in relation to our keyless magnetic entry project going on in the Law and Justice Center. And so that will be a stand-up item for this committee and then for property after.
All right, any other business and communication? Member Tompkins?
Yes, I am very pleased to see the agenda up on the screen. It really makes it convenient, and the room looks very professional. Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
Any other questions, any other communication? All right, we have bills to pay and we have bills and transfers. All right, we have bills in the amount of $1,061,280.66. I have a letter here from our county auditor saying that she has reviewed the bills and that they comply with all ordinances, resolutions, and other policies of our county code. And can I have a motion to approve the bills and transfers? Motion by member Mendoza, second by member Schaefer. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? I think we're adjourned, aren't we? We're done. All right, you're done. Thank you.
Thank you.